so this is me. Pretty cool picture, I know. I was a member of Winter Park Junior Ski Patrol up until a couple weekends ago. I didn't get kicked off. I'm just a graduating senior, and I finished up my last day. So there's that, and then this fall I'll be going to school of mines, hopefully studying mechanical engineering. And with that, I'm going to depart from mechanical engineering because my project is about something completely different. So my goal this year was to create an alternative to the long spine boards or backboards or LSBs currently in use by emergency medical services and providers and ski patrols. I realize probably only about 10% of the room understands what that means, so I'm going to elaborate a little bit. So I'm a member of the National Ski Patrol too. In order to become a member, you have to take the outdoor emergency care course, a lot of which is focused on this backboard. So you have to take a refresher every year. And I showed up 2 years ago at our refresher and they said, hey, guess what? Backboards are actually really bad for our patients, so we're going to try to stop using them less. Which was kind of a shock to me because we spent probably 1/5 of our time in OEC learning how to put people on those. So I decided to try to figure out a way that would do it better. So you'll notice that a person's spine is pretty curved, or not pretty curved, but it is curved to a certain degree. And the board is actually very flat, so when you strap a person on, it flattens out their spine, which can cause a whole lot of problems because the spine is not meant to be flat, but the board tries to make it flat. So it leads to problems such as increase in intracranial pressure. That's an increase in the cerebrospinal fluid pressure inside your brain, so it puts the pressure on your brain, back and neck pain. Anyone who's been on a backboard can tell you that is very true. And even pressure ulcers, which are really gross, so I don't have a picture of them. If you want to look them up, you'll have to do it on your own time. At this time, I would like to invite my friend Alexa up. She's going to get on the board for us and talk about how terrible they are when she gets off. Sit on here for a little while. It's not any kind of a punishment. She volunteered to do this. We'll let her off in a little while. Alexa, if you start to feel like you really need to get off, just tell me. Don't want to be that guy. So as I was considering my design, I realized I needed something which would hold the patient as steadily as the current ones do, wouldn't cause any additional pain, would really be a one-size-fits-all solution because that's the intention of these, because we really want to have one thing which can be used in any circumstance of need. And I also wanted to not increase scene time. Scene time is very important for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept. We have this notion or concept, not a notion. We have a concept in emergency care called the golden hour. That means it refers to the idea that if you can get a patient to a hospital within an hour of receiving a traumatic, potentially life-threatening injury, their survival chances go a lot higher if you can't get them in there during that time. So I really wanted something that's not going to increase that scene time to the point where we're cutting into that golden hour because a lot of time is actually used transporting. Even if you have a helicopter which flies in, it still takes at least 20 minutes to get them to the hospital, so that's 40 minutes for you to get them down the hill and into that helicopter. All right, now I'm going to go into my secretary work from first semester, August and September with all this. This is my advisory list. I have Mr. Shane Jones, he's a mechanical engineer at Oregon Mining Services. Mining services is just a fancy term for making explosives in mining, which is really cool to me. I have my support advisors, my dad, Robbins, he's a doctor, so anything that I needed help with, medical-wise, he could help me. My mom, she's a pharmacist, so I come from a line of people in the medical field, so this is kind of an appropriate topic for me, even though I'm not going into it when I graduate. I have Christian Frank and Alexa Lair, who Alexa's sitting right there. Christian is grading me right now. Both of them are architectural students. All right, my logo. So that's my logo. It's a big version. It's been up in the corner for all the other slides. If you couldn't tell, I really love skiing, so I tried to incorporate that in my design. So the peaks of my logo are kind of symbolic of the mountains, and the bottom goes straight across and then is curved like a ski. I love skiing. What can I say? I also wanted my design to be purely black and white without any flashy colors because I like to think that the products that my company makes are simple and effective and don't need anything else to show them off. I'm going to go to my project objectives that I created at the beginning of the year. I'm going to go through each of them and talk about whether I achieved them or not. A green arrow that's pointing up means that I achieved it. A yellow arrow that's pointing sideways means I sort of achieved it. And a red arrow that's pointing down means that I didn't. Number one, earned my Certified SolidWorks Professional Certificate. I already have my CSWA, my Certified SolidWorks Associates, and I would like to become a professional. I think that would be very important for me, going to school of mines and hopefully getting a job in the engineering field. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I failed it. I failed the 2 tests that I took. So I'm going to look forward to working on that hopefully at mines and potentially after that. I also wanted to learn about the stress simulations and general simulations on SolidWorks. I watched tutorials of how to do that online, and I could do it with the parts that they gave me, and then I tried to do it with my own part, and I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever. I just didn't know, I couldn't apply it. I don't know anything about statics. I'm in AP Physics C, which is about calculus, not about statics. And then I wanted to design and test multiple designs that could be used in place or in addition to current backwards. Did that, that's good, that's my first green arrow. And then I wanted to determine which of the 3 would be the best alternative. And I did that. We'll find out about those 2 later. And then I also wanted to research materials which could be used in the manufacture of my alternate devices. Did that too. So yay, 3 goods, 1 okay, 1 bad. So like 3.5 out of 5. Not bad. That's AP. So my timeline in October, I gave myself a lot of time, especially October, November, and December, to do parts of my project, which really didn't take that long. So I ended up spending a lot of time practicing for my CSWP. Same story in November. I wanted to hopefully have taken both of the tests and passed them, but that didn't happen. And you can see evidence of my giving myself way too much time. I've got design current LSP in SolidWorks, continued design of current LSP in SolidWorks, and finished design of current LSP in SolidWorks 3 consecutive weeks. And then I got on SolidWorks and it took me about an hour. So I way over budgeted my time for some parts of my project first semester. And same story in December. I wanted to learn about strength simulations, sort of did that. I'm not perfect in it. I don't know how to do it actually. And I ended up spending a lot of time practicing for my CSWP. So that was kind of the running theme first semester. I gave myself way too much time to do something else. And most of that extra time ended up going towards practicing for my CSWP. January, second semester, I actually started giving myself parts of my project which I needed to accomplish, and it was a reasonable timeline instead of giving myself far too much time. So I wanted to have a concept of design number 1 and hopefully have started making it in January. I also wanted to retake the CSWP, but I realized that wasn't really something that I needed to do now that my project was kicking into gear. So I took that out. February, I wanted to finish the design of number 1, and then start and finish the design of number 2. And I did that, so that was good. Another retake the CSWP, cross that out. And then by the end of March, I was hoping to be finished with design number 3, which also happened, so that was good. And in April, I wanted to spend most of my time preparing for my presentation, which I did. So April, I was really on track for April. This time, I'm going to let Alexa off the board. Good job, Alexa, you did great. Did that feel good?
No, not at all.
Would you recommend it to a friend?
No.
No. Yeah. That's kind of the experience that we get for most patients. And Alexa got to experience it too. And she volunteered, so yay, I didn't have to force anyone on. So these are the 4 medical studies that have all said we should either slow down our usage of backwards, not be so eager to throw people on them, or just stop doing them. Yeah, they all acknowledge that long spine boards are harmful, so I had to come up with a way to get around that. So I started with design number 1. This was my first sketch. Looks like a 3-year-old drew it, but that's okay. So you can see it's kind of got some bends, especially in the back. Your thoracic spine kind of bends out this way, so I wanted to have that bend so it holds your spine in the perfect position without actually like forcing it to be flat. So this is my final design that I came up with. It's curved to the shape of the spine, so that your patient can be on there and have it perfectly hold them in place without trying to flatten their spine. This is a side view of it. I came up with the pros and cons of this to be overwhelmed with it. Pros. It provides a lot of stability. If you've got the board with the perfect fit of a patient's spine, it can hold them even more steadily than these ones do. These ones, since they're trying to flatten your spine, allow for a little bit of movement, even though they are pretty sturdy, but this one would be even more sturdy. That's about the only pro. The cons. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You've got me, I'm like 5'9", and I've got Tyler Dugan. He's a lot shorter than I am. I didn't mean to call him out like that, but you would need separate design sizes for both me and Tyler, and if you put either of us on the other board, it would probably make those problems I mentioned earlier even worse. So that's not what we're looking for. We really want one size fits all. That's the point of this. These would also be relatively expensive. These ones are about $100 a pop. These ones I think I would charge about $150, and so that price can easily round out into the above $1,000 range. You just need a lot of separate sizes of the designs, and you need a lot of them in case many people of the same size get injured. I know it's an if, but you really need those because you don't want to show up to a scene and realize you need one that you don't have. So, and most ski resorts aren't willing to give ski patrol a lot of money. Let's face that fact. So they wouldn't be particularly eager to spend over $1,000 to restock the entire fleet of boards. It also requires more effort on the part of the first responder. First responders already got a tremendous amount of pressure on them. They have to ensure that this patient is well cared for, and they get the right materials that they need to come down from the top. And so this adds another step to them. They have to assess the patient's size and make sure that they call for the right board size, because if they don't, you'd have to either go up and get a new one, or put them on the wrong size board, which we don't like the consequences of that. All right, design 2, I wanted to go in essentially the opposite direction. This one looks like a 4th grader drew it instead of a 3rd grader, so if there's anything I learned from this, it's that my drawing skills got a little bit better. So it would be a foam pad set on top of the current long spine boards, and when the person lays on it, it conforms to their spine. So I've got kind of a drawing of how that works. This foam gets compressed more in the spaces where the spine is bent against the board, and it stays up in the position where the spine is further away from the board. I wasn't really sure exactly how I was going to accomplish this. My main design was just to take a foam pad, put it on the board, which is not very in-depth. And then it occurred to me that I needed to make this waterproof. This is going to be made out of memory foam, but being on ski patrol, if you get water inside it and it freezes, you're kind of back to square one. So I needed to look into ways of waterproofing it. I turned to tower pads. If you guys have been to ski resorts, you've seen them. They have to put them on all the towers because otherwise they'll get sued if someone hits it. I looked at Idaho Sports Sewing, and they said, yeah, this is what we do. We take a foam pad and we wrap it in vinyl fabric. So I said, hey, vinyl fabric. That's what I'll do. So this is my final design of it. This is like the full version. You can't see the foam. This would actually be attached to the board. And so the way this works is you just buy them from my company and then just attach them and return it backwards. You don't have to go through and restock your entire supply. This is a cross-section view. So here you've got your board, you've got your foam pad, you've got your cover, and then you've got two Velcro sheets. The top one is going to be sewn into the cover, and the bottom one is going to be adhered to the board with adhesive. That presents a little bit of a problem, the adhesive and the Velcro, because they could wear out, but it's not as big of a problem as if a board breaks or something like that. Now, another side view, that means we've got another pros and cons list. Pros, this is definitely a one-size-fits-all approach. Tyler Dugan and I could be on the same board. Sorry, Tyler, I'm just going to keep using you. Yeah, it can fit any spine size, which is really great. That's what we're looking for, because we want something which we can use in almost all circumstances. It's also relatively inexpensive. I was thinking these would be about $40, and I think that idea sounds a lot more enticing to ski resorts than replacing their entire back fleet. Cons. This one is really a pretty minor con, but vinyl is not that sticky of a fabric, which, I mean, most fabrics aren't that sticky. So it would allow the patient to slip a little bit, but assuming the memory foam is working correctly and the first responders strap the patient to the board correctly, there's really not much slippage that would occur, because it's probably nothing more than what could occur when the board's already. The adhesive and Velcro could wear out, as I already mentioned. They would need to be replaced, but that's a pretty small thing to fix. Design number 3. This is definitely the coolest design, but it's also definitely the least practical. So, in fact, how it works is you place a plastic bag on the board. I didn't include that. Then you move the patient on the board, and you fill it up. You fill up the bag with polyurethane spray foam, and it conforms to the patient's spine as it's carried. So this is what I was going to use. Great stuff, gaps and crack sealant. You can buy it at Home Depot for $4. I made a pros and cons list for this one too. This one is also a one-size-fits-all approach. The foam shapes itself to whatever size of patient is on the board. You can't really get much better than that. Unfortunately, the cons heavily outweigh this one, even more so than the first one did. It takes a really long time to form the person's spine. At my table, I have a time-lapse video of it, and it takes 2 hours to form the patient's spine. So that golden rule that I mentioned earlier kind of takes it and throws it out the window. It can also be adversely affected by cold weather, which, being on ski patrol, you hear that, and you instantly say no. You need stuff that'll work in the cold. It also really needs oxygen to cure correctly. I found this out when I was trying to have a bag of it on my table about a week ago. I sprayed it into a bag, sprayed the rest out into a garbage can because I think ahead. And then I came back and looked at it the next day, and the top part had sealed, and the bottom part was kind of this really gross, squishy, liquidy mix. So it needs to have oxygen with it, and my design puts it in a bag without oxygen. So that kind of rules it out too. So lots of cons on this one, even though it is a really intriguing design. I said at the beginning that I was going to make a recommendation of which of the 3 was best, and I did, or I came up with that. And now I'm going to make the recommendation. Design number 2, it was the obvious winner for me. Design number 1 is more expensive and it could actually lead to more problems if you don't have the sizing right. Design number 3 takes far too long. Design number 3, I also forgot to mention, would actually be incredibly expensive. $4 a can, and then making a lot of assumptions that cost could rise. Assuming a ski resort uses 1 can for every backboard that goes out, the cost could easily rise up to $3,500 in a season, which is even more expensive than the first design. And again, ski patrol is not the benefactor of most of that money that comes out of the ski resort's revenue. So design number 2 is the best. It's cheap and it's a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's really what EMS is looking for. So that is my presentation. I go through my image credits and my bibliography. Most of these are career comparison, secretarial work. But if anyone has any questions, I'm just going to ask them.
Any questions?
They're doing away with the longboards. What are they using?
They've actually trended towards not using anything at all. They've said, actually at the refresher they gave us the kind of flow chart. They said if the patient is exhibiting any of these signs, put them on a board, and if they're not, then it's your call. But we prefer if you didn't use it because it can actually be harmful. So you'd actually just load them in a sled as they are. You wouldn't strap them down to the board. Yeah.
So in this presentation, I hear you referring a lot about the use of these lung spine boards for the ski patrol.
Yes.
Are you also directing this towards just regular EMS?
This is directed towards anybody who uses long spine boards. Obviously, my focus is on ski patrol, being a ski patroller, but most of these concerns apply to most other EMS providers. Except maybe the cold one, but I mean, Denver, if you're an EMS provider working in the middle of winter, you could deal with that situation too.
And I have one more question. So, are you familiar with the scoop board?
I am.
So, in that I'm talking about very, very large patients, probably not as likely on the ski slope, but just in the EMS field, what would you do in that situation with this kind of board for the phone?
I think with the phone, like assuming design number 2, I think you're asking. I would, if their problems are bad enough and we think that they really need to be on board, I think we would try to fit them on board as best we could. But if we don't think that they're that bad, or we just can't physically fit them on board, I think we're going to use the scoop. Scoop is a different kind of thing. For those of you who are familiar, we usually use it for hidden injuries on patrol. Yeah.
Did you file a patent for this design?
I did not.
Why not?
I wasn't really looking to put any of my designs into production.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chris.